Thank you very much for that introduction. So I take no credit for the title, by the way, so this was a kind of office work. Thank you. So I'm going to be presenting my data today, and I'm looking at clinical data management and statistical rigor, but an unexpected theme that came out was the importance of teamwork, so I thought I'd focus on that for my presentation. So I should say I'm in my final year now, so I'm just going to present a sample of my data. And what I did was semi-structured interviews, and looking at data management and statistics, I interviewed 11 statisticians, 7 data managers, and 15 PIs. And what I did was, based on the responses from the interviews, I modified the questions for the next interviews. So that's where a lot of the themes from today are coming out from. And I'm going to present some preliminary findings of my inductive thematic analysis. So I realize I'm kind of preaching to the choir here today, but really, why do we do trials? Well, there's a good set of ethical reasons when we do a trial. We need to start thinking about the patient, putting the patient at the center of it. Is it worth it? Methodologically speaking as well, how robust is it? Is it meaningful to the participants? And it's about having impact on clinical practice and the people being recruited. So that leads us to the question of what we heard a lot earlier: is all research good research? And what we need to do is make sure that any trials that are done are appropriate, meaning they answer a meaningful clinical question. We don't want to expose participants to any unnecessary risk, and have the appropriate level of support. And when I say support, this is looking at the teamwork that I'm going to be talking about. So most of us here are academics, we're researchers, and what we want to do is create an environment that's appropriate for research and scholarship, for the students to know what we're interested in and what trials we're interested in doing. So why the need for rigorous trial methodology? Well, one data manager said to me that we need to be confident in the tasks that we're conducting to ensure that we can stand by the data and then what's published is actually worthwhile. There's nothing worse than if a patient has given up their time, their blood samples, and it's designed inappropriately. And we heard a lot today about making sure that we plan very robustly from the beginning. It actually just feels wasteful. I'm sorry about this. So top 5 tribulations, there's quite a lot that's come out of my data in terms of strengths and weaknesses, but I really just wanted to highlight that funding is a major obstacle, I suppose, because that relates to resources as well, access to research management, nurses, statisticians and data managers. It's about the access and availability to them. The scientific elements, of course, we know the importance of the documentation, but it's the trial governance as well, making sure our teams are put together. Having uninterrupted time for research activity, and then my last point there about training. So we need to be looking at funding for more career development awards. Sorry about this. So what, in terms of trialists then, I know trialist means different things to different people, but we're looking for a positive supporter and a contributor to trial methodology, involvement from the get-go, being truthful and reporting the data. And last year we had the symposium on transparency, and I'm presenting pretty much roughly the same thing in terms of being honest and having academic purity, and an appreciation of contributing to the totality of the team. So really what data managers want is to educate people on the full functionality of their roles. I mentioned training, keeping skills levels up, integrating properly with teams. Open communication, of course, is quite important, but the statistician mentions you can go insane from having too many questions. So we should complement each other. We should play to people's strengths on a team and recognize limitations. I wouldn't be doing my PhD justice if I didn't have a slide on acknowledging the role of a trial statistician, who they are not just the number crunchers, but have an intellectual input in the design as well. There's very few statisticians, as we are aware, in the country, and we need to know how valuable they are at the funding stage, reviewing papers, finding an opportunity to catch mistakes early on. So just in terms of communication then, a lot that's come out is things get lost in translation. We've got interdisciplinary teams. Language has to be understood from everyone, from the patient down to the PI. There's no shortage of good advice, and I think that's evident here today. There's a lot of expertise in the room, and we really should take that on board. And making sure, of course, that everyone's voices are heard. Again, I wouldn't be doing my PhD justice if I didn't just highlight, this is a whole presentation by itself, conflicts of interests. A lot coming out of my data has been industry. They're very commercial and in the sense of the financial aspect, wanting to be successful. But we'd be naive to say we have no conflicts of interest in academia, because we do want that prestige of getting funded and the publisher perish idea, I suppose. And also we heard about equipoise earlier today, and I'm no expert on this whatsoever, but it's really just about acknowledging whether there is such thing as a clinical conflict of interest. And again, in line with transparency of last year, the more stuff you have out there, the more protected you are. So I asked trialists, was it worth it? And we have to remember again that trials are about asking people to take time out of managing their life and coming in to participate in voluntary research. So this is one of my favorite quotes actually from my data. No one asks a statistician how many successful therapies you've worked on. It's more about how many rigorous trials. And I think as academics, this is quite important to us. And for us, that study was really important, not because it was a big commercial trial with lots of money, but it did change clinical practice. So it allowed a guideline to be developed and got us a very nice publication. And I think that's what the essence of trials and rigorous trial methodology. So that's pretty much what I've discussed today, just the importance of interdisciplinarity, funding for training, access and availability, resources. Some things I didn't touch upon for in the interest of time. The importance of PPI, teaching and learning within teams, international collaboration and career opportunities. I'd like to thank my three supervisors, Eilish, Marie and Declan, School of Nursing in UCD and TMRN. Thank you very much.